Hey game designers, in this video, we're gonna work with the squash and stretch. So in the last video, we did these height adjustments, right? And the height adjustment we did just using our arrow keys. So we got this consistent height now, but the problem is when we moved using the arrow keys, it created some of our sprites to not be on the ground anymore. So we're gonna use the squash and stretch to make sure that all of our characters are on the ground. Now, what I could do is just use this drag tool and just drag it so that it will scale the entire body. But what that will do is that will ruin that consistency we talked about between the top of the head and the waist. So all these squashing and stretching should only happen on the lower part of the body. So you can see here that my feet are under the ground. So all we're going to do is we're going to grab the parts of the body that are part of the lower part of the body. So the right leg, the lower torso, if you have that shape separate, and the left leg. So this is the lower part of the body. And what I'm going to do now is I'm going to squash this and get it just on the ground. Okay. And now it's consistent with the floor. And we're going to keep doing this for every single frame. So there's A1. I'm going to go ahead and go on to A2. And A2 is going to have a similar issue now. A2 is way too short, so I need to stretch. But again, I don't want to stretch the entire thing by dragging this. I'm going to use my control click and control on the lower part of the body. The right leg, the lower torso, and the left leg. And now I'm going to stretch this frame. So again, I'm going to stretch it so that it touches the ground. And I'm going to move on to the next frame. Now I'm going to move on to A3. A3 looks like I need to stretch a little bit. Again, I'm going to stretch the lower part of the body, right leg, hold control, left click, lower torso, left leg, and then go ahead and stretch. Okay, let's go on to A4. So A4 needs to be squashed just a little bit here. So I'm going to go ahead and grab the right leg, lower torso, left leg, and just go ahead and squash it. Okay, that's A4. Let's go to A5. A5, I need to squash a little bit. It's a little bit into the ground. So again, I'm going to click on right leg, lower torso, left leg, and I'm going to squash the lower part of the body to touch the ground. Okay, there we go. I'm going to move on to A6. Again, I need to squash this a little bit here. So I'm going to go ahead and grab the right leg, lower torso, left leg, and squash it just a little bit. Okay, and that finishes the A6 frame. Let's go to A7. Turn off A6. A7, I just squash just a hair. Right leg, lower torso. And just squash it just a little bit. Oh, looks like I have the rotate tool on. There we go. Squashing. Okay, that looks good now. Okay, I'm going to go on to A8. Okay, A8 looks basically perfect. I think A8 is basically on the ground already. Let's go to A9. A9 looks perfectly on the ground. Looks like I didn't have to adjust the height all that much for this one. A9 was perfectly up and on the ground. Let's go to A10. A10 looks like I need to stretch to the ground. So again, I'm going to click on the right leg, lower torso, and left leg, and go ahead and use the stretch and stretch it down. Good. Now let's go on to A11. A11 looks like it's perfectly on the ground, right? My head is where it's supposed to be, is touching the ground. Let's go to A12. A12 is the down slide, and it looks like it's perfectly on the ground. Looks like I can maybe fix the shoe a little bit, but that's not a big deal. Let's go to A13. Okay, A13, it looks like I need to squash a little bit here. I'll go to right leg, lower torso, left leg. Grab the scale tool here. Oops, I grabbed the rotate tool. And I'm going to squash it just so that it's on the line. That looks good. Let's go to A14. And wow, that's a huge squash. So I'm going to go here, click on the right leg, the lower torso, the left leg. Okay. And I'm going to squash. Okay. And now we're done. We have all these frames from top to bottom. It has the correct height adjustment. And now everything touches the ground. So let's go ahead and take a look at it, kind of zoomed out a little bit here. And let's take a look at what we have. We have A1 touching the ground, near the top height, touching the ground, top height. Now on my way down, touching the ground, going lower, touching the ground, going lower, touching the ground, going lower, touching the ground, and the lowest position. Touching the ground on my way up, touching the ground, going up higher, touching the ground at this tallest, touching the ground and going down, touching the ground, going down, touching the ground to the lowest, touching the ground on my way up, touching the ground on my way up. So now you have this consistent touching the ground and the height adjustment that we wanted. Let's go ahead and take a look at it from the gift and see if we have a good looking walking animation. So you can see now that our Homer is starting to look a lot more consistent, right? He has his limbs moving the way that we want it. He has this good bounce to his body where his hips and his head are bouncing consistently up and down, right? And the only thing left that we need to fix is this head bobble, right? So we'll teach you that on the next video on how to just make sure that the head consistently bobbles forward and backwards, forwards and backwards, forwards and backwards. And then after that, you can use that same method for any part of the body to make sure that things are moving consistently. Okay, so that's it, folks. I'll see you in the next video.